Hello world, my name is Victor Engelmann. Welcome back to the series on professional network design using Linux. We've recently installed a Kerberos server in our network, and we've already used that to authenticate against an SSH server. Okay, and today I want to do the next step and use that Kerberos server also to authenticate against an SQL server. And it's basically the same thing. We already have the Kerberos server, and I will take the same machine that I used for the SSH server, which means that it's already joined to the Kerberos realm that I'm running on the Kerberos server. Okay, so if you're doing this with a fresh machine, then remember you need to join that to the realm. I've explained how to do that in another video, so I'm not going to do that here. Let's jump right in. So I had the LDAP server, which was also running the Kerberos server, right? Okay, but that server is finished. I don't need to touch that. I will just keep using that Kerberos server. So log out and log into KRB5SSH server. That was the host name of the SSH server. And as you can see, it didn't ask me for a password because I already have a Kerberos ticket, right? So because I have that, I was able to log in directly without a password. Now on this server, first I will install MariaDB because it's not installed yet, and I will just do it quickly. MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, which uses a different backend, I think, but I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not in the sudoers file. So I'm gonna log out and log in as pi at KRB5SSH server, because pi is in the sudoers file. Okay. Okay, the server is now installed. Okay, the server is already running. That's good. Let's try to log in. We try to log in as root with MariaDB. Okay, and since we are doing this with root privileges by doing sudo here, it allows us to log in. Okay, now I don't want this video to become an SQL tutorial, so I will just do a few little things here with SQL to have a little bit of data to work with. So okay, we have 3 databases. I will create one that I will call MD. Now let's show databases again. Now there is the database I created. Yeah, if you want to, you can think of databases as separate directories. So, and with use MD, I have now basically changed into that database MD. And you see that here. Before I was on no database, now I'm on this database MD. Okay, show tables empty set. We have no table yet, so let's create one. I will call that movies, and we have to tell it which columns we want. I will have an ID column of type integer, then a title of type varchar 255. So we can put titles in that table that have up to 255 characters, and a year also of type int. Okay, now we have the table movies, and let's insert some data into that table. Insert into movies, ID, title, year, the values, well, ID 1, I will use matrix from the year 1999. Okay, and a second entry, Jurassic Park from 1993. Okay. And yeah, now we can look into that table. Select star from movies. Semicolon. And yeah, here's our table. And yeah, now we can do stuff with our database, put tables in there, put data in the tables, whatever. But as I said, I don't want this to turn into a video about SQL. I will just leave it at that. And yeah, now I want to log into that server. So first of all, here on my laptop, I will install MariaDB-clients. Okay. Okay, now I have installed MariaDB clients, which means that now I have a program called MariaDB, the same that we are still using here. Okay. Okay, if I just run it, then okay, I don't have a local MariaDB server, so or MySQL server, so it cannot connect to anything. By default, it tries to connect to a local host. So in order to connect to some other server, we have to give the option -h for host. KRB5 SSH server. Okay, it doesn't allow us to log in. This might be a problem on the server. So let's look into etc MySQL. MariaDB conf-d, and in here I guess it should be in server CNF. Okay, yeah, having a bind address of 127.0.0.1 means that we are only allowed to log in locally. I will will set that to 0000 so that we can log in from everywhere. Okay, save, exit, and restart the server. Okay, now let's try again. Okay, it tells me that I'm not allowed to log in on the server. I'm guessing this is because right now I only have the root user, and the root user is not allowed to log in remotely. So let's get back to the server, and yeah, let's create another user. I will call it test. Identified by, yeah, here we now have to put the password. Not a huge fan of that, but yeah, we'll put password here. Okay. And grant all privileges on our database md.star, so on all tables in there, to test. Okay, so now we have given all privileges to this user test on all tables in that database. Okay, now let's try logging in as this user test by saying -u test, and I'm guessing if I'm doing it like this, it will also yeah, refuse, because it says using password no. We have to give it another parameter -p to make it ask for a password, and the password was password. And look at that, we have successfully logged in. Okay, information schema. I haven't given access to that, but whatever. Use MD. Okay, and now we can access the data. Okay, so now we have the database, a table in it, and we can access that data remotely from our client. So yeah, now let's configure this whole thing to use Kerberos as an authentication method, so that we don't have to input our password all the time. Okay, how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to install a package. MariaDB -plugin GSS API. GSS API is the same thing that we used for the SSH authentication, right? -server. Okay, we have the plugin. Now we need to configure MariaDB to use this plugin. How do we do that? We go back to this configuration file, etc mysql MariaDB confd 50 server cnf, and then down here under MariaDB we can now say plugin load add equals authentication underscore GSS API. Okay, with this we load the plugin, but this plugin requires a few informations. It needs to know which Kerberos principal to use for the communication with the Kerberos server. Yeah, that's what you do with all your Kerberos enabled services, right? And yeah, then we need to give it the password for that principal. Yeah, we will do that with a key tab file as we did in the SSH server also. So, okay, to configure this, GSS API _ key tab path. I will put the key tab in etc MySQL krb5.keytab. GSS API principal name. Yeah, I will create a service account that I will call MariaDB / and here you put the host name of the server, so that's krb5ssh server.engelmann.local at engelmann.local. Okay, so service name / host name at Kerberos realm. Save and exit. Okay, so let's create this principal and the key tab file where we told it to look for it. So okay, we're in kadmin. Create a principal with a random key. Because for service principals it doesn't make sense to give it a key. It's just more secure to have a random key that nobody knows. So and yeah, the principal I wanted to call MariaDB / krb5ssh server.engelmann.local. I could also append this at engelmann.local for the realm, but it will use that anyways. Okay, we now have the principal, and now we need to put this random key that it has generated in a key file. So key table add -k is the location where we want to put it. etc MySQL krb5.keytab. And which key do we want to put in there? The key MariaDB / krb5 ssh server.engelmann.local. Okay, it has written this key tab, and yeah, now we are done in kadmin, so log out of that. Okay, now we have this key tab, but the thing is that the MariaDB server runs with a user called MariaDB, and that user doesn't have read access to that key tab file. And that really brought me some headache when I tried this. So remember that we need to change the owner to MariaDB for this key tab file. It says invalid user MariaDB. I don't know. I'm guessing now that MariaDB by default runs under root account. So yeah, the root account would have read access anyway, so we don't have to change the owner. So let's try restarting MariaDB. Okay, so it looks like the server is now already able to authenticate using Kerberos. But we haven't yet allowed any user to use that authentication method. So we have to again log in as root. Okay. And yeah, I will now create a user whom I will give the same username that I have here locally on my client, because that's the name also of my Kerberos principal. Okay, so I will create a user called WYOOS, and here we say identified, but here we don't say identified by and then put the password there. Here we say identified via GSS API semicolon. Plugin GSS API is not loaded. Okay, let's try manually loading it. Install SO name, shared object name, auth GSS API. Okay, GSS acquire credential failed. This looks like it cannot access the key table. So okay, a lot of informations about this service. In particular, I'm looking for this UID 116 here. Okay, you see, the user is called MySQL. That was my mistake before. So it was right to sudo change owner, but yeah, we have to say MySQL for etc MySQL Kerberos 5 key tab. Okay. So let's restart the service again. Okay, so let's go back to MariaDB and let's try again. And I'm not doing this install SO name again because I'm assuming that this works now. So create user WYOOS identified not by password, identified via GSS API. Okay, look at that. It has accepted this command. And yeah, now I will grant all privileges on md.star, so everything in database MD, all tables, to write your own operating system, semicolon. Okay, so now the server should accept Kerberos authentication from my client. So let's try this. MariaDB -host Kerberos 5 SSH server. And look at that, I have logged in without being asked for a password. And I didn't even have to tell it the username, right? It's just used my local username. Yeah, if I had K initialized any further principals, then I would be able to log in with them also using -u and then the principal name. Okay, so this is pretty good so far, but there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that is, I mean, working with SQL on this command line level, yeah, if you are a computer crack like me, then you don't mind that. But yeah, other people might want to have a more user-friendly interface, right? So because of that, I will install a tool called MySQL Workbench. That's a graphical user interface for SQL. And I will also install MariaDB-libs. Okay. Good. Now MariaDB-libs has now installed in user lib64 MySQL plugin these plugins here, okay? And in particular the auth GSS API client SO. That's a library that other tools can use to log into the SQL server with that same Kerberos Authentication. And yeah, when I now run my SQL Workbench, that looks like this. Here we have my SQL connections. That list is empty right now. So I'll create a new connection. First I will use the test user, connection mode TCP IP to KRB5 SSH server. Port 3306 is the default. Username test. And store in keychain password. Okay. Okay, that was the password that I had given to the user test. So now I can say test connection. Okay, it complains a bit about the server being a MariaDB server, while MySQL Workbench prefers MySQL servers. So yeah, continue anyways. Okay, and now I can, yes, don't show. Again, continue anyways. Okay, like this we can now log in, and here we can now go to schemas, and here we have the database MD with the tables, movies, select first rows, and here's our data now. Okay, so yeah, that's nice to have a graphical user interface to the SQL server. Okay, but yeah, now we have a problem. I mean, here I had given a username and a password, right? And that's what I don't want to do, right? So what I want to do is I want to use Kerberos. So here in the connection method, I would select native Kerberos, hostname KRB5 SSH server, port 3306, username write your own operating system. Okay. But without a password, because native Kerberos mode GSS API authentication. Okay. If I now try to connect here with test connection, it says the shared object wasn't found. Okay, so here under advanced we have path to plugin directory. Okay, and remember we had seen that here in user lib64 MySQL plugin, right? So if I now paste that here, in my opinion, this should work. Okay, but when I test connection now, it says cannot be the authentication plugin Auth GSS API client, you know, this library here, this shared object, cannot be loaded, incompatible client plugin interface. And yeah, it seems that this is just some kind of a version conflict. If you try this on some other distro other than Manjaro, this might work. If you try this in, I don't know, 6 months, it might work. Maybe this version conflict has been resolved until then. But yeah, I have not been able to get this to run. I even compiled the most recent versions of all involved things from the Git servers, but yeah, just didn't work. So so for the time being, if you want MySQL Workbench, at least on Manjaro Linux, yeah, you'll have to live with username password login. Sorry about that, but nothing I can do about it. I've filed a bug report about it yesterday, and yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this gets resolved, but in the end, this is MySQL Workbench and not MariaDB Workbench, right? So, so my guess would be that they will ignore it because they will say, well, MariaDB is not a scenario that we are interested in. And I was right. But yeah, whatever. So that's all I wanted to show you today. If you like this video, like it, share it, subscribe, and see you next time.